Thank you for sticking around. I'll make it worth your while. I promise. Let me take a moment. Let me come closer to see if I can actually see some of you. I want to acknowledge the organizers of this event. Where are you? Lamia? Inji? Please stand up. Yalla, let's give them a big round of applause, please. The whole team. This event doesn't just happen. I know how much work they put behind it. If everyone who's stuck with us to the end, I think you all know that there is a great amount of thought process behind everything that happened here today. And really just, for me personally, I have a lot of respect for them. This conversation is so important. It's so important that this takes place in Egypt. And if we could maybe pull up the presentation. Guys, let's pull up the presentation, please. So if this is a consequential conversation, because there are many positive Egyptian stories. But in order to pursue them like they're doing, like Lamia and the whole team are doing with narrative disruptors, it takes vision, it takes courage, it takes persistence. Because, unfortunately, it's not the most obvious thing. And I'm a political news junkie, and I was just watching a Democratic presidential hopeful on the campaign trail yesterday, and he was talking about an experience that he had with an old lady, and that's where the wisdom lies, we all know, with old ladies, back when he was a mayor in New York. And what she told him was, if when you look out, you only see despair and poverty, and everything is gloomy, well, that's because that's who you are inside. But if you look out and you see hope, and you see the possibility of making an impact, that speaks volumes about you, right? So this is why I have great respect for events such as these ones, because I know that it takes hope and perseverance. And if Egyptians don't know how to have hope and perseverance, I don't know who does. I've been here in Egypt, coming back and forth for almost 2 years now. And the reason I stuck around is for the spirit that I found in the Egyptian youth. And I found them very well represented at the World Economic Forum for the Middle East and Northern Africa in Jordan. I was just there. Let's see if I can get this to work. They don't need to press real hard. There we go. So what I want to do today is give you an overview of a consequential development moving forward, the fourth industrial revolution in artificial intelligence in particular. Oh, go back. And I want to emphasize that these particular leaders got there together for a purpose. They understand that the fourth industrial revolution is what's going to change everything. It's the ultimate disruptor. So there are many panels talking about artificial intelligence. That was one of them. There was even a panel called Shaking Up the Middle East. It was like, I don't know that the Middle East needs more shaking. But, so it wasn't the most fortunate things. But I get what they were trying to say, right, with that title. There's nothing that we have known up until this point that can really shake things up, like technology and especially like algorithms. And as you see, I had a brief intervention there. You might see that there are a couple of gentlemen there that look actually quite shaken up with the things that I'm saying. That's probably when I was addressing the topic of equality, right, between men and women. I don't think that they disagreed with me. I think that they were more like, who is she? I was discussing the fact that technology is the great equalizer. The great equalizer is a term that was coined in the UK 19th century with regard to education. Well, I think that technology is now the great equalizer because technology doesn't care if you're black or white, if you wear a hijab. You can work from home, you can work from anywhere you choose to. Technology only cares about the code that you write. And we have so many examples right now in this very region of the way that coding allows young girls to achieve that equality. Right at the forum, there was this reputable Saudi lawyer, a female lawyer, and she was telling us 10 years ago how hard it was for her to get the license and how she had to go and sit for 6 months to convince everyone to certify her license as a lawyer because she was a woman. And now, a decade later, she could renew it in 3 days because everything was done through technology, so there was no more bias. We have the example of our friends at Gaza Sky Geeks, and if you don't know Gaza Sky Geeks, please Google them. I'm trying to support them in every way that I can. It's the only incubator slash accelerator slash coding school slash office with electricity in Gaza. Gaza Sky Geeks. One of, for instance, many of the girls who go there to the coding schools, they are girls who had to ask for permission for their parents. The parents didn't quite understand what it was that they're doing, and now they're the breadwinners. They're the breadwinners. They work remotely in Gaza, and they support their families as coders. So technology really is the great equalizer. And what you see as well there in the front row, right, very, very consequential leaders of the Gulf countries. Right next to me, that's the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi. He's the grandson of the founder of the UAE. You have ministers, the gentleman looking at me puzzles, they're ministers from the Gulf countries, the Crown Prince of Bahrain. The reason that they were all of them there front and center is that they understand that this is the way to go. This is the future. There's a minister of AI, of artificial intelligence, right now in the UAE, Minister of State. This is the first ever position globally. There's, in Bahrain, Bahrain is the first state in the world to grant permission of data residence for data jurisdiction for companies who come to set up data centers in Bahrain. And they already have this hyper data center from Amazon. The countries are setting up there. They're really understanding where to go with this. Now, I would like you guys to please play the video, and then I'll take it from there.
UAE is we want to get everyone to be a part of this future, and we want them to understand the impact of AI in the right manner. So we're doing multiple programs. One is this AI camp. We expanded it to be year-long, and we have different camps. We have a camp actually ongoing right now on data science at this given moment across the country, and we're aiming hopefully by the end of the year to have more than 15,000 students that go through this program. We're also deploying AI within our educational curriculum, focused first and foremost in the primary phase on ethics, because we want to ensure that students have a very strong ethical compass when it comes to developing these technologies, to engaging with these technologies, and to working with these technologies in the future. And then moving from grade 5 onwards to understanding how to shape this technology, and how this technology is going to shape their jobs, how this technology is going to shape their future, and how they can be a part of this future. So I hope this answers your question.
So this was a part of a larger exchange that we had, not just in this session, but all throughout. The forum, as you saw the Crown Prince of the UAE of Abu Dhabi there nodding when he was putting an emphasis on ethics. And ethics, if we can please get the presentation up again. So ethics is really the driver and what's going to make the difference going forward. And that's because This is what the top scientists, the amazing Stephen Hawking, had to say about it. The rise of powerful AI will either be the best or the worst thing to happen to humanity. Elon Musk, the great innovator, says we need to be proactive in regulation instead of reactive, because if we're reactive with AI, it will be too late. And they're all spot on. So what does that mean? That means that if we don't right now train the algorithms with an ethical mindset in the way that they can be used, we're doomed. We might be the last generation. And I wish I could see a show of hands, but I can't really see much because of the lights. Who thinks that the killer robots are coming after us? Can I see a show of hands? Who sees that that's going to be our destruction? So here's the thing about killer robots, right, which is what we I guess, fear the most. They don't even have, at this point in time, batteries to last them long enough. So, they'll probably move around for 5 minutes, and then they will collapse, like cockroaches. Oh, oops, I'm out of battery. So that's, the technology in that regard is not yet well developed. But if you think of CRISP, which is, CRISPR is a kit that you can order online, costs $100, and you can basically alter genetic material. It's biohacking. You can launch a disease that will kill half of the world. So the problem there is that unless we start very early on with with sort of a compass that explains to everyone that ethics is the way to go, we've lost the battle, and we have to start now. And let's just take a moment here to talk about what is artificial intelligence very quickly, because let's strip away all the information, all the applications, the potential users, right? So what is it? What's the basis of it all? It's training a program, basically, a computer algorithm, we call it, a code, to identify us, to predict our choices, our actions, and to get to know it. And the way we do that is by feeding it a lot of data, a lot of information, right? Like, for instance, the key, I highlighted 2 words there. We're building it. We are the ones building it, so we still hold the power. So as long as we build it the right way, taking into account ethics, and that's why I was very happy to hear the Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence in the UAE mention that before all else. So unless we do that, we're in trouble. Objective. So here's the thing about an algorithm being objective and getting to know us better than we know ourselves. I'll give myself as an example. I consider myself a moderately disciplined person making healthy choices in my life. Now, if I had, working out, eating healthy, like if I had an AI assistant sort of following me around, they would say, well, let's see, Ioana, last week you devoured a huge cheesecake. A couple of weeks ago, really for the past few months, you didn't really work out, maybe just a couple of days. If you think you finished your work on time, let me remind you that instead of finishing your articles on deadline, sending your presentation on time to the narrative disruptors, you took the excuse of feeling tired and you binge-watched Star Trek on Netflix. So this is how an AI would keep me honest, because the algorithm would have a perfect register of everything that I've done that week. So even if I want to pretend that I'm better than I am, well, there's no way in doing that, because the AI is there to keep me honest. Which is terrible, right? It's like, oh my God, having someone to nag you all the time or remind you of your failures, that's horrible. It's very annoying. But here's the thing. If we get this technology right, that's the worst part about the AI, the fact that it will annoy us and remind us about the bad choices that we're making. If not, then the future looks a lot worse. But this is what we can do to make sure that the algorithms are set correctly. I already spoke about the ultimate equalizer. Conscious capitalism might seem like an oxymoron, and it is not, because more and more companies are paying attention to the people they employ, to the community at large, to the customers, not just to creating shareholder values. You know why they do that? I don't know that they do it out of the goodness of the heart. They do it because AI is keeping them honest as well. There's so much data and information right now based on what the companies are doing, and there's this awakening, this awareness rising. There's already a momentum. So basically, the clients, the investors, are going to look at the choices that that company is making. There's actually on Wall Street, there's an exchange-traded fund right now which looks at exactly that. At the choices that companies make. It's an ethical fund, and that's how we invest. And the more we'll have algorithms making investment decisions on the stock markets, and the more we train those algorithms to pay attention to the choices that the companies make, the more we will have conscious capitalism. And of course, setting up algorithms to correct humanity when it fails at being humane. Oh, what does that mean? That's such a difficult topic for us humans, right? Because we love to have someone to blame. Let's blame the car because it has a horn and, a pedal for accelerating. It's not us that we're bad at traffic, it's the car. Let's blame, Facebook, because we willingly, granted, not knowingly, always, that's a different conversation, share pictures of our own lives, Let's talk about those, it's terrible, right? The planes that went down, the 2 planes. And we blame technology for that too. You know why they went down? Human greed, that's why they went down. Because the authority in the United States are supposed to implement standards and certify that new upgrade that they installed on board those airplanes had outsourced the service to the airplane manufacturer itself. So the airplane manufacturer was supposed to basically auto-regulate itself. There is no incentive there, they just want to make money. Second, they charge. So they charge for training on that upgrade. So many airlines couldn't afford it or didn't want to afford it. So it's not technology in itself, it's the way it was used, to make money, basically, by Boeing. So I think we all really need to understand that it's really easy to blame technology, but it's really, if we train, this is our opportunity to train algorithms correctly to correct us, because we fail, and sure, that's the beauty of us being humans, and we learn from our mistakes, and we're imperfect, it's wonderful, but sometimes the choices that we have can have very dangerous consequences for ourselves and for the ones around us. So, what if there was a technology that can correct behaviors for the better, that can foster institutions which implement and govern by new rules, allowing for a more sustainable decision-making process? That's artificial intelligence for you. And I really want to hammer one point here that 100 years ago we could have not foreseen where we are today. And we are far better off today than at any point in this history. That's just not even up for debate at this point, right? So we cannot know right now where we're going to be, where we're going in this future of ours, but we do know how to make it better, right? And this is where the great opportunity lies. And very briefly, that's another conversation that was up at the forum, electricity. You know the story of electricity. 100 years ago, companies, factories, would go up in flames because the electricity was very unstable. So the insurance companies in the US are like, "Khalas, we're not going to insure you anymore. We're putting together a committee of underwriters and see if we can figure out this technology called electricity." So they came up the short circuit and with standards. And the insurance companies were like, you implement these standards, we're not going to insure you anymore. And now we have electricity, right? I don't have to explain to anyone the benefits of electricity. That's why we're here today. It's exactly the same thing, right? Like the fact that we blame the existence of mobile phones on the fact that we can't, like that we're addicted to it, either willingly or because the employers ask us to. Well, that's actually a technology that only really existed for the past 10 years. So the thing is that so that's education as well, both on the part of the employer and on the employee, right? So really a point that I need to make is that as we embrace this technology, and artificial intelligence really, the first was coined in about 1957. And I can tell you for a fact that there are many of those forefathers of deep learning who are now in academia and have studied it and researched it for decades and are very, very committed to having a public debate about how to use AI for good. So that is happening. We do have that time that there was a lot of course, we don't read about it in the media, but there is a lot of work behind it. So, very important. What I've been saying until right now, we cannot regulate ethics, but we can educate it, right? So you put all the regulations in place. If someone doesn't get it, if they don't care about it, they're just going to break it, right? Education has to come at a very early stage, and we have to get it right to explain people what ethics means and how to use technology for good. Regulation needs to maximize the positives by balancing risk and opportunities. Countries need to understand that in order to move forward, there has to be a conversation, a community-wide inclusive conversations, and countries have to become enablers. So the government has to talk to the private sector, to academia, to students, and together to find those rules that would allow technology to thrive and research to thrive. So we're not trying to stifle innovation, but we are trying to make sure that we lay the groundwork for what Elon Musk was saying, right? To be proactive and not reactive, because that's when it will be too late. And that's something that the UAE is doing really well, because they have regulation laboratories where they test AI regulation ideas for a duration of 6 months. They work with the private sector to see what works and what doesn't. And I know there's a whole debate, and it can go on forever about, of course, the distrust between the state and its citizens and the incentives, right? Companies don't really, if the money maker is the data, then companies don't really have the incentives to protect the data of its customers. So really, we are imperfect at every level, but this is a fantastic moment to have that conversation of the cooperation, the perfect cooperation between the state and the private sector to make sure that we get this right. Now, where are we now regionally? I'm going to go through this a little faster because I'm out of time. So, Murat Somes from the World Economic Forum, Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution in San Francisco says, if data is the new oil, then China is the new Saudi Arabia. And what does that mean? China has massive amounts of data. So China has the scale that needed to achieve algorithms. They have good data, and they're able, because they have such a massive population, to really train the algorithms the right way, to get them to understand behaviors very, very well. However, Khalid, the chief executive of Bahrain Economic Board, says the Middle East can be its refinery. So this is what the Middle East can do. So between Bahrain, with its data centers, UAE, with its quite forward-looking approach to regulatory, can really turn this region into a hub of excellence, right? China has the volumes, North America has the research centers, and we can actually all cooperate, and there's a place for Egypt in there as well. I talked about the UAE, I talked about Bahrain. Jordan has some quite impressive advanced tech and programs, educational program. Egypt can be the lab of the world because Egypt on a regional level, has the scale that other countries in the region don't. And I'm going to come back to what I said initially about the spirit of the Egyptians. So what I've seen in Egypt is that the innovative youth has this amazing tendency of solving its own problems, right? So they are solutions created by the people, for the people. They understand their problems, they understand how to solve it, and sometimes without much help, they're able to do so, right? So they're very entrepreneurial, they're very driven. 10 years ago, there was almost no ecosystem, a startup ecosystem in Egypt. Now it's thriving in a region. We have Swivel, but so many others, again, trying to find solutions to the developmental challenges. And because of the scale, say that you try to test a technology solution, an algorithm, in each one of the neighborhoods of Cairo, let's say. That's still more people than a small European country, right? So this is why Egypt has a tremendous potential going forward. It can literally be the testing ground of the world. So just like the testing regulation in the UAE, this is the opportunity in Egypt, right? And access to funding, there's a growing interest of funding ventures rising from Egypt because there are a lot of success stories and there are many people who are very keen on pushing that industry forward. So if amongst yourselves there are investors in the room or people who want to understand where the future of Egypt lies, it lies there. It lies in testing and innovating for solutions that they can solve not only the development challenges of Egypt, but that of Africa, of the Middle East, and of the world. And this is my last slide. I'm going to leave you with this. You know very well what that is. It's a picture that has been everywhere for the past few days. A picture of a black hole. 53 million light years away. How incredible is that? How did we achieve this? It was a cumulative effort for spanning years of 100 scientists using 8 radio telescopes on 4 continents. So if I am to leave you with one thought, that is the fact that technology and research set on an ethical basis, actually has the potential to bring us together rather than tear us apart, because everyone is motivated, everyone is driven by research, by innovation, by creating a better life. And this is what can bring us together. This is what can solve this fractured world, an egalitarian, ethical, artificial intelligence-based society. Thank you very much.